Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new edition of Let's Talk About Education with Antonio Corrales. As you may know, I'm an educator, an entrepreneur, and a professor at the University of Houston Clear Lake. My main goal is to introduce you to pioneers in the field of education and to let you know about topics that you may not be aware of, but you may be interested in. Today, we have the honor to have with us Dr. Lisa Davis, an expert in the field of secondary education and how to help your child and your students to transition to college successfully. Thank you so much for being with us today,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Davis.
Thanks for inviting me. Happy to be here.
Absolutely.
It's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun.
All right, Dr. Davis, can you let's start by letting you introduce yourself to the audience, kind of talking about your career and how do you get to where you are right now?
Okay, great. Well, this is my 18th year in education, which I can't believe because it has flown by, but in other ways seems like so long. But I started out at the age of 2 wanting to be a teacher. Knew I'd be a teacher. Never dreamed of being a principal or let alone anything in central office. But so in my 18 years, I have actually worked in my current position of Secondary Director of Curriculum and Instruction in Angleton ISD. This is my 8th year for that, and then I was also a high school principal for a couple years before that, a middle school principal for several years before that, and then I worked actually at our local boot camp, our JJAAP, and worked there for 5 years as a teacher of all secondary levels of social studies and psychology. So got into education because I loved being a student. I still love being a student. In fact, I'm still a student. I mean, I will always be a student, and I think that's kind of going along with my position right now. Really fell into the position by default and some administrative changes in my district, but ended up loving it. This is by far my favorite position because it's so impactful on all students, not just simply the students I was serving maybe at my campus or in my classroom.
Correct.
But so in my current position, I am the Director of Secondary Education, which is all-encompassing. Everything from
When you
curriculum,
put together
instruction.
everything from elementary to secondary.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, kind of a follow-up question on that area, because it's a really important topic and everybody talks about it in America right now, and actually globally, is how to get our students college readiness. Why are you so passionate about college readiness? Because I mean, a lot of states have adopted what we call the college readiness standards, and
Right.
why are you so passionate about this topic?
I think I'm passionate about it for a couple reasons. Mostly because I have children of my own, 2 grown children and one who's currently finishing up his high school career, going into a senior year, and is right now this week in the middle of his high school registration for his senior year. And working not only with my children as a parent, but all of the students of Angleton ISD, I see what we're doing well as not just an ISD, but a state and also a nation as far as preparing kids for career. And I call it career. I'll talk to you about that, career readiness, in a moment and why I refer to it that way. But really, I see what we need to continue working towards, because just as a nation, a state, even though Texas was one of the leading states as far as implementing college and career readiness standards and really having that standards-based and understanding what a college readiness indicator was, we're further behind than we need to be. And quite frankly, we're just not doing everything we need to help kids be successful in preparing for their career. So the reason I call it career readiness is because sometimes that career will require college. It will require a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree, or sometimes it will just require some skills that we can teach them while in high school to prepare them for that workforce.
So specific training.
Yes.
So let's talk about that, because I found that topic fascinating. But what should administrators and educators in general should do different to better prepare students for to successfully transition to college? Because sometimes when I hear you talking and I hear ideas out there, I feel somehow that in some cases there's a disconnect between which should be happening versus what is happening right now, especially at the middle school and high school level. So for the administrators, watching us today, and educators, what are the things that they should do to better prepare students for college, in your opinion?
First of all, I completely agree. I think we all got into education with the idea that we want to help kids. Period. I don't think there's anyone in education that doesn't want that. But I think it's really the practice of what we do daily. I think we constantly have to be reflective learners in the education system and ask ourselves, are we truly doing that? And really look at data, not just data from the K through 12, but data from colleges. We are certainly sending students to college, but are they truly ready? Are they making it through college with a degree? How long is it taking them to make it through college? Are they, or if they're not wanting to go to college, are they entering into a workforce? Are they being productive and successful? So I think that's the challenge for administrators specifically, teachers also. It's the whole educational community to really make sure that every single thing in the school system is lending itself towards that. I think sometimes we are short-sighted in that we believe that our main priority is to graduate students with a high school diploma. That's wonderful, and I did that myself. I achieved that with many students. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're ready to go and be successful in college, or that they're ready to be successful in a career, or that they have all the skills, whether it be curriculum, content knowledge, or whether it be some of those soft skills that the workforce and industry are telling us are very much lacking in some of our students.
Well, one of the things that you hear high school principals and successful high school principals talking about the restriction that they have in those terms. I don't find that there are excuses, but that's what they put on the table. Number one is the curriculum that is expected to be taught. The second thing, and with that I mean the specific blocks and time frames that the states and the nation is expected the students to receive throughout the day, throughout the year. Then the second thing will be the resources. What type of resources are we able to provide the students to get them ready for a career or a college, and are those resources being effective? So what can you tell us about that? For example, why are we not training better students in the classrooms or in the schools for the SAT tests or for the ACT test? Or why are not we preparing them better to by the time they get to college, they are successful to, for example, pursue engineers careers? Because you and I know, for example, that the STEM field is going to have the majority of jobs offers within the next 10 years. 80% of those jobs go to males.
Correct.
And so what can we do better to provide those opportunities for students and set them up for success and no failure?
I think you're exactly right. I think all of those are factors. They're not excuses, but they're factors to be considered. But I think that they're factors to be considered and accommodated for. And in some ways, we do that very successfully in Angleton ISD, and I've worked with other districts that have done that very well or found ways to help alleviate those considerations. Definitely in the state of Texas, you've got your state assessments. I know many other states have that as well, but the state assessment in Texas pairs well with the college and career readiness standards. So one of my roles in my current position is to work with principals and teachers, especially in the areas of English and math, to really make sure that they're understanding what the college and career readiness standards are, first of all, and how they can blend and pair well and integrate with their current curriculum. So I think the role that I take on with teachers is not to add more to their plates or something in addition, but to really have it make sense so we can blend and really, again, have that global understanding of, do I want to just be sort of short-sighted and sell my students short in preparing them only to pass the English 1-star, for example, or graduate with a high school diploma having passed all my EOCs, or do I want to really make sure that they're truly college ready, indicated by maybe a measure on the PSAT, the SAT, the ACT, the TSI, whatever it may be. So I think one of the greatest resources that we just utilize too little of is each other and our partner colleges. I know for myself, working in Angleton ISD, I rely a lot and work with our Brazos Park College, junior college. I work with Houston Clear Lake. We work with Rice University. So the partnerships that I have with the colleges really help to make sure that, number one, the curriculum that we are teaching in both high school and middle school levels is really, the content is relevant to not only what students need to know today, but what they're going to need to know 5 years from now. We also partner together with the workforce commissions to make sure that we're aware of job trends, like you mentioned, STEM. There are some careers that we are aware of that fall under STEM and some other industries, but there are others that we're just not even aware of what they're going to be called.
Right.
But we do pretty much know and have the data behind us to support the fact that we know we need to not only make sure kids are ready with that content and curriculum, but those other skills, those problem-solving skills, critical reasoning, all of which, again, blend in with the college and career readiness standards. So part of what I do is maximize time that we're spending, and yes, we're going to prepare them for the STAR and passing tests and without lengthening a school day, and making sure that students are receiving a well-rounded education, but making sure that our sights are beyond high school. It's really truly that P16 that is becoming the language of our
So
ISD.
I guess having that liaison, that communication with colleges and local businesses, that they can provide that feedback.
That is the greatest resource that I
And
rely on.
I guess you may have forums for that. Like you may have committees that you can involve, parent businesses, colleges.
Exactly. We meet regularly, and so speaking to that, communication is key. I mean, communication of just making sure that the right information is out there, but that it is getting to the right folks. So one of the things that we make sure that we're doing is meeting often. In fact, we meet quarterly with our local partnerships with the workforce, industry, and college, just to make sure that we're all keeping up with what we all need to be doing. And I also utilize a lot of our industry partners as well as college professors to help partner with our teachers at the high school level specifically to help co-teach a class. So while a high school teacher might be aware of the content and be very skilled at teaching it, the relevancy and how it applies to the real world, that's where our industry and college partners come in. So that's a huge piece for us as well.
So let me pick on that and kind of talk about an area that I feel that, I'm in the schools all the time, so one area that I feel that we're dropping the ball nationwide is training parents for this transition. We probably do a good job training our principals, training our administrators, training our teachers, and providing that information, providing those resources. But I feel with parents, you hear over and over again, I don't know how to help my child to complete the FAFSA form. How to help my child to apply for scholarships or grants that may be available for them regardless of ethnicity or socioeconomic status. How to help my child to be successful in the SAT. And sometimes what we hear is that, that information was provided to the students, but we forget that they're still children. And so one thing that I've seen around is not only we're dropping the ball on training parents and getting them involved to help them children successfully transition to a career or a college, but we also dropping the ball on following up on the students to utilize those resources. What do you think about that?
I think you're spot on, and I think it's probably the greatest challenge of any school organization. One thing that I know we are still trying to put in systems into place and really make sure that those systems work, and it goes back to, again, the time factor like you talked about, is really utilizing our school guidance counselors. It starts with them. It just doesn't include them only, but it really does start with them. And so we truly make sure that they have the most up-to-date information and making sure that they've got the training and resources, but utilizing them to start that communication process. So it's not only the modes of communication, it's the how, it's the when. What we find is that the best resource that we have in the schools is starting with the student, having communication with the student, meeting with students regularly, at least 2 meaningful visits a year, just to make sure that they're staying on track, that their interests, that their goals and aspirations beyond high school hasn't changed, and really making sure that they're just not being successful in their classes, but that their program of study while in high school is really helping to prepare them for whatever their goal is at the time. So checking in with students regularly, at least a couple times a year, is key, just to make sure that our plan is correct.
Why is that such a challenge for school counselors in high school? Because I hear over and over again, and that's a hot topic, by the way, in itself, that you can talk for hours.
Yes.
So the role of school counselors in schools, but sometimes you hear over and over again, it's such a sad challenge for high school counselors to meet with students and have this conversation, especially we need to be clear that many of the students, even in as seniors, are not really clear what they want to study.
Correct.
And so
Correct.
that guidance is key.
Yes.
So
Totally agree. It's to me, it starts and ends with leadership.
Okay.
So the leadership of a district, and then obviously moving down to the high school itself, really needs to set that tone for that college-going culture, that career-ready climate, really among their entire faculty, and then create those systems, work with their faculty, and work with the districts and parents to really create those systems and processes that allow for that to be the priority. Because again, we're sitting here talking about a challenge that how long have we had the challenge of not being able to send more than 50% of our students into college career ready?
Correct.
We're graduating high school students, but they're not all college or career ready. And that's a real problem. It's not a new problem, but yet we're not making changes in the systems at the school level. So I think that it takes a courageous leader. I absolutely do. I think it takes a creative, out-of-the-box leader who is willing to put their money where their mouth is. If you're truly in this to help students graduate high school and be college and career ready and ready to be successful, then you have to prioritize student time and time with counselors and time to have those meaningful conversations. And I think in doing that, you also put the priority and that emphasis on not just the student but the family. I really think that's where we kind
Well,
of gotten lost.
it's a
whole
cultural
thing.
change.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, can you talk about successful initiatives that you would recommend to educators, and then we're going to talk about parents later on, but talking about a specific successful initiative that schools can implement to trying to increase their passing rate or their performance in terms of SAT scores,
College readiness
ACT,
tests.
college readiness, or even AP tests.
Absolutely.
So
one of the things that has really worked for us, we're in the middle of a kind of a new process here, is really bringing it down to the middle school level. So at our junior high level, which happens to be a 6th through 8th grade campus, we are moving a lot of our college readiness tests down there.
Okay.
We are training the faculty a lot on understanding what college and career readiness standards are. We are embedding those into the curriculum. We're training on what does the PSAT look like, what does the test look like, what does the SAT look like, the ACT, and how does that format of that test differ from the state test? Completely different.
That's really good, because you're really breaking the fear, especially not only for the students and teachers, but also maybe for parents, because they're going to start hearing about it.
Exactly. So speaking of parents, we need to bring in parents. We don't do a good enough job of that, but I think that one of the lessons that we learned actually just recently in having some parent meetings regarding registration is that they really have to be in small groups. Just like we've sort of changed the model for faculty meetings, instead of 100 people in a room just delivering information that a quarter of the people are going to walk out with knowing.
They're going to be
we
there.
really bring in small groups of parents throughout the school year, and really specific to a topic. The idea of college readiness and how do I prepare my student? When should they take the PSAT? When should they take the SAT? What's a good score on the SAT? How do I know if the admission requirements are the same for this college or that college?
Or when do I start applying for scholarships?
Exactly. When do I do
when is a
all
good
of
time?
this?
Is it 11th grade?
Right, exactly. And so we sort of schedule those topics just in time kind of
That's a really
topics
good idea.
with sessions throughout the school year.
So basically small topics, but
Yes.
that you can address in different
Exactly,
opportunities.
and beginning with junior high students and their parents.
That's good.
That's really where it starts for us. So we just sort of changed that model. We implemented that a couple years ago, using the PSAT administered to the 8th graders, and really use that data to make sure that we are capturing the kids and really what their propensity and potential is, making sure that we discuss the results with students. I think that's a lot of times time consuming, and so we just give the test and we don't really share the results with students and let them know.
You know that with the AP test, the frustrating part is that a lot of those students to take the AP test leave.
Right.
So it's hard to go back and try to fix the problems that you have.
Right.
But I guess implementing those AP tests early on in
Right.
9th grade or 10th grade,
Exactly.
at least as an assessment to see where they are.
Exactly. Even earlier, we have our first group of students in our 8th grade level who are taking our Spanish, AP Spanish, the first year. And so really what that helps us to do too, even with some of our seniors who take that AP test and leave, we look at all of that data to make sure that our curriculum is appropriately preparing those students to be successful on that. As is the case with many districts, Our AP results, the performance on those, we have high participation, but the performance is really not what
It's
it
still
should
not
be.
there
So
where it should be,
it's a multifaceted problem. So it's not only making
So
sure students
what are you doing? What do you recommend to do for the SAT with the students within the schedules? One of the like we said before, one of the biggest restraint that administrators and educators in general say, okay, but how do we feed that training within the schedule? How do we provide, for example, SAT training or ACT training to students in the high school within our day-by-day basis?
Correct. We look at different things. We look at the class schedule. Obviously, one of the big restraints and constrictions is the credits. So in our district, we require
Correct.
26 credits. We require a couple more classes and credits than the state requires, and there's reasons for that. But we look at where we can, again, maximize the time and utilize some time. Again, just in time sort of training and teaching of these different topics. So SAT readiness, we might capture a portion of the test that traditionally the data has indicated that our students in our region are scoring poorly on.
So for example, your teachers are including those components in the lesson plan?
Yes,
Excellent.
yes, in their curriculum. So we do that for math, we do that for English, of course the writing piece
So it's
is
kind of
critical.
attacking the test in a diversified way.
Right, exactly. And really, and again, that brings the whole faculty to the table. And it really, you have a piece, you have a part to play in it, I have a part to play in it. And it's not, again, all on the shoulders of the counselor, and it's all not on, that just, okay, well, I guess we can't rely on parents to know and understand or even to have the time. So it's really, we want them involved to make sure that they're helping their children on their end as best they can, but we need to do our part, making sure they have the education, the resources. We do many nights with parents where we're just sending home different resources with them, whether it be websites or different pamphlets. What do I start in my 8th grade year, 9th grade year?
And what about allowing the students to take practice SAT tests?
Yes,
too?
we do that. We actually have an SAT course that is an elective course.
Okay. They're taking it, what, 11 or?
They actually can start taking it in their 10th grade year.
Okay, awesome.
11th grade is the most critical year, and so in anticipation of that, our district has, again, prioritized. This is a need for us, and so we put some money towards it, and so we offer that test to every student at a discounted price, so that every student has the opportunity. There should be no reason. Cost should not be the reason that we're not able to make sure every kid has
What
success.
about parents? What do you recommend for parents, and also this also goes for districts and schools, for them to feel better in terms of how to apply for scholarships and different opportunities for their children when going to college? One of the biggest trauma that parents have, and I experienced that myself, is when the children need to start applying for colleges. They need to complete these big essays. They need to complete application packages. They need to, each one of them may cost between $75 to $120.
Exactly.
And so, what can a school administrator who's watching us right now, what can they do to make that process a little more efficient for parents and students? What type of initiative do you think that they can implement?
We utilize social media quite a bit to that end, and again, we start that at all levels. So it's depending on what's going on at the time or what time of the year it is. Is it time to start completing the FAFSA? If the FAFSA is opening, then we start sending home information. We put it on our social media to parents and students that they need to start collecting their text forms.
Like a FAFSA day,
exactly.
Right?
And then of course we invite parents in to help, and we walk through that with them.
Correct.
We bring in our college partners, and they assist with that as well. Of course, for parents who may not speak English or understand some of the terminology real well, we have all of that accounted for, because again, those are the students, just some of our Hispanic students in general are underrepresented and underperforming, but we know that doesn't have to be. So a lot of, I think, the barriers are barriers because we've unintentionally created them. So I think that's really where the benefit of at least my position is, I kind of get to bring all of the key players together to say, okay, these are the challenges. How do we solve them? How do we do something differently? Going back to, again, the social media. Social media has been a huge resource for us. So there's even a lot of podcasts or webinars or YouTube videos that we actually have our counselors put together just in time, little trainings about one specific topic that we actually should post
maybe
on our
you
website.
can you also can have an elective, like you have the SAT, maybe another elective for writing, even though they know how to write, but writing essays for college application.
Exactly, that's a great idea. We haven't done that yet, but we've worked with our English teachers to actually implement a portion of the time, maybe 30 minutes throughout the week, to really dedicate it to those students once it's time to start those the essays. Last year, they were coming to them after they were written and doing a lot of editing and things of that nature. Now the students this year are starting to work on those in class when they're done with their other work. So it's the awareness is becoming greater, and therefore the figuring out, working together about how can we meet these challenges within the time of day that we have. We haven't lengthened the school day. I think we're just maximizing the time that we do have.
That's a really good idea. Well, I really like what you said about immersing these components within the lesson planning, so teachers feel that are able to do it. Now, what about these students who are not planning to go to college? Because we have a portion of them that, at least initially, are saying, you know what, I don't want to go to college, I just want to start making money. So what type of initiative or training, because we hear a lot of career and technology courses, but how can they align to real needs? One of the facts that I want to throw out there is like, only 10% of the student body in the nation take AP chemistry. And sadly, a lot of the jobs available in the STEM field are going to be in chemistry industry. And so we're not taking advantage. So what kind of initiative can we have for those students who say, I don't want to go to college initially?
I think, again, when educators come to know what the students' goals are in 11th or 12th grade, while there's still some things that we can do to help prepare them, it's a little late. And so again, I go back to those meetings that our counselors have a couple times a year with students and families, starting in our junior high level, really with the main purpose being, what do you think you want to do at this point in your junior high career? What are you kind of thinking about? What do you like? We do a career interest inventory and things of that nature. And then the conversations still take place, but the topics change along the way. So really making sure that we're preparing a rigorous program that's helping to prepare them. So you mentioned career and technology. Again, working with our partners to make sure that what we're teaching in our CT programs is actually what's going to be available and what's going to help prepare them. And then also making sure that it's a lot of communication to the students and their parents too, to make sure that even though you may be a student that wants to just go directly into the workforce, and we'll prepare you to that end, much of what you do not only in your high school program, but down the road, possibly once you decide you might want to go back to college, what you do in high school might put you further down the road. So there's some different, again, it comes back to the counselors taking the lead on knowing and understanding the courses and the sequencing of courses.
Okay, so basically understanding for counselors, understanding the sequencing of courses and the CTE, career and technology, aligned to the needs of the community. It could be any. Correct. It could be that different communities have different things. And the other thing that I was thinking too is knowing the cohort of that particular year, and what I mean by that is that what you started with saying, okay, we need to meet with these students at least twice a year. So really getting to know what the students wants to do. That particular group of students, those 500 students, each one of them wants to do with their life in the near future. It's critical because that way you can individualize recipes for them, right?
It's critical. That's the only way I think we're going to get further in solving this challenge and really preparing students is we have to find a way, school leaders, district leaders, teachers, we have to find a way to work together to really prioritize that time, that meaningful time with meaningful conversations with students to make sure that what we're doing, what the classes we're putting them in, the content, the curriculum that we're teaching them, the data from the college tests when they take those is really being communicated with them to make sure that we are preparing them for either the workforce, if that's directly what they want to go into, or career, or the military, whatever it is. We have to start really being more mindful of that, I think, and changing systems and processes in that.
That is amazing. Okay, Dr. Davis, I want to ask you final recommendation for educators or administrators, teachers in general who are looking at us right now and they want to make a better job helping their students to transition to college. What can you tell them?
I think it takes just a committed leader, a committed educator, whether you're in the classroom, whether you're in the principal's office, the superintendent's office. It really just takes I think a recommitment to being aware of the challenges and just making sure that what we're doing, we get to work in a human business. These are people. So if we want our country to remain great and at the top of its game, and we want to make sure that every single little person walking out of our doors is helping to make our society that much greater, then we have to do our part while we have them with us. And so that means having those conversations, maybe doing a lot of things differently, prioritizing some of our time in a different fashion, and really just making sure that what we're doing is in direct result to what it is they want to do after high school, not just getting a high school diploma. It is no longer the end goal. It can't be the end goal. It's got to be beyond that.
That is fantastic. Well, thank you one more time,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Davis, for being here with
Enjoyed
us.
it.
Our viewers, remember that we have this video and many more in Antonio Corrales and YouTube channel and startingevaluationassessment.com. Please stay tuned and see you next time.